Hello, hello, hello. Just going to take a couple of deep breaths as I'm going live. Feel free to join me with a deep, long breath in and a longer breath out. Hello, hello, hello. This is day 7 of my 30 lives in 30 days, day 7. And it's the end of the day on Sunday. And hi, Lauren. And I'm just kind of winding down for the day. I still have some week planning to do, and some doggy care and self-care. But before I do, I wanted to jump online and continue with my commitment. Those of you that are not already familiar, I had a download to do 30 lives in 30 days. And so I'm following through on my commitment to myself, to my highest self. And as I was sitting to ground myself and regroup and to connect with what is the highest and best to speak about, there was a couple of things that became clear, so that I'd like to share. But before I do want to acknowledge that it's Father's Day. And so for all of you fathers that are present with your kids and active and available, I congratulate you and send you a very happy Father's Day. And those of you that are the moms that act as the mom and the dad, I send you a happy Father's Day. And anyone that struggles with Father's Day for any reason whatsoever, I send you so much love and a hug for Father's Day. I know for me, I don't really like to be online for Father's Day, but for this I will. Anyway, so sending so much love, and so I was thinking about what to connect with, about what would be the highest and best for people to hear tonight. And what came to me was about having conscious conversations. And this might get a little complicated, but I'm going to do my best to keep it simple and useful. And what are conscious conversations? Conscious conversations can be like talking about things that are just important in the world, important to your spirituality, and conscious conversations could mean just having difficult, real, and vulnerable conversations, and that's what I'm referring to today. So I've spent a long time developing my program, my one-on-one program called Authentic Expression Activation, where I help people connect to their true voice through a process that I've developed. And the reason that I created that was because of all the work that I've done to connect to my voice. And why is that? Did I need to connect to my voice? I know I mentioned it in a separate video. It was difficult for me to get a word in edgewise in my house growing up. Hey, Cheryl. And also there was a lot of fear of speaking up. For me, speaking up meant a lot of pushback that was really unpleasant. And so I learned to just shut my voice down. So I would get a lot of pushback in either very overt ways or covert ways, or get made fun of. Actually, my voice was made fun of. So I started to have this thing about hearing my voice, and so for me it was just much better. As children, we learn to adapt. We're so adaptable. So for me, the safe space was to get quiet and go within, close my eyes, and I would see purple and just say less. Which worked, right? It worked for a long time until it didn't. And then it became very painful. because especially when I became conscious that there were things that I wanted to say and had a difficult time saying them. First it was unconscious. It was just unconscious. And then my body, as you go back to the body messages video, you'll hear me speak on that I used to get strep throat like 4 times a year. Hey, Emily. I used to get strep throat like 4 times a year. In fact, as a little girl, I didn't even know there was other sicknesses besides strep throat. What I've learned as an adult is that, of course, I would get strep throat. I wasn't speaking. So, of course, everything would get infected. It would be stuck here. And so the understanding is one thing. Then the embodiment is another. So my process became... once I understood what I had been through, right? Because a lot of times we go through things as kids and growing up, and we don't call it trauma, or we used to not call it trauma. I think now the word trauma is thrown around a lot easier. But we didn't know from that when I was first becoming conscious and when I was, even in therapy. And so as I started to understand what this was all about, it helped me, because then I knew what I was dealing with, and I'm not one into labels, but sometimes it's easier to understand what's happened when we put words to it. And so that kind of put me on the trajectory of how do I get to use my voice? How, right? After experiencing freeze. Freeze means that your whole body just kind of tenses up. It can almost feel like you're white knuckling. You can feel it in your shoulders and your chest and your jaw, and it could feel like you don't know what you're going to say. Ugh, I put on bug spray, but there's still bugs. It could feel like you don't know what you're going to say, like you just kind of blank, even though you knew a few minutes ago what you were going to say. Or it can feel like you know what you want to say, but you like literally can't get it out. Like you can't get your mouth to function. You can't get it out. So it's a very difficult thing to go through. And it still does happen to me sometimes. So I will preface that with, I am not perfect. I coach people through things like this, but I coach people through things like this because I've been through it. And I know how to bounce back, and I know how to move through. And sometimes I still get stuck. And so, but the good news is that I know how to come back, and I have the right supports. The sun is moving, and now I could barely see the screen. So forgive me if you're commenting, and if I don't see it, I will check after. Anyway, so back to conscious conversation. So this is what was the impetus for me, right? We make our pain our purpose. And, I was on a completely different trajectory as far as career anyway. I was a graphic designer. I was an art director. Eventually I started teaching yoga, but this coaching thing and even yoga wasn't really the planned path. And so fast forward till now, I've been looking at how yesterday I talked about how connections are so much more important to me now. And so it's really making me look back on my life up until today and how I've connected with people, and especially how I've gone through repairing ruptures in relationship, and how I've done really well with that in certain scenarios, and how I could have done better in other scenarios. And I'm sure that all of you guys listening could look back and say the same, right? So we live and we learn, right? But I had just a wonderful experience that I wanted to share. I had a wonderful experience with a friend, and we were having a conversation that was going really well, and then certain things were said that I didn't feel comfortable, but I love her so much. And so I didn't say something. I didn't say something because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. But that brought me back into some old behavior. So it wasn't that I was afraid of her, right? In my childhood, I was afraid to speak up, and I had every right to be afraid. But in this particular situation, this was not an acquaintance. This was not somebody that I felt unsafe with. This is somebody that that I think is wonderful. And I was afraid to hurt this person's feelings. And so that put me into a state of freeze. But what happened was my body felt so uncomfortable. I started feeling hot and tense. And for me, I feel a lot in my jaw. So I have an exercise that I do with my clients to help move anger and stress through the jaw. And that started happening. And then I was trying to hide it because because again, I was trying to protect her. So I'm pausing here because I could picture the feelings, and I wonder if any of you have ever felt the same way, or maybe you have somebody that you love that has felt the same way, where you're censoring yourself to a point where it actually feels like self-abandonment, and it's not authentic, right? So my program is called Authentic Expression Activation. In that moment, I was not practicing what I teach. Now, it wasn't with a lack of awareness, and it wasn't from fear. Well, it was from fear of hurting her feelings. And once I went back and did the work on it, I started to realize that this was like, what was the fear? Why? I mean, if I hurt her feelings, we could have talked it through. But what I realized is that it was beyond the fear of hurting her feelings. What was below that, once I did the work, was I was afraid of being rejected. I was afraid of being abandoned, right? And so this is where inner child work is so important, when we start to understand our core wounds, so we can start asking ourselves the question and unpeel layer after layer after layer to see what's underneath there. The good news is that when you do this work on a regular basis, it takes a lot shorter of a time to understand what's going on, and then we can make the repair. So I realized that that's what that was for me. And I knew that her intentions in general are very good. So I decided to say the thing, right? Say the thing that was coming up. And hey Corey, hey, hi love. And so I decided that I wanted to say the thing for myself, for her, for the friendship as a unit, and to stand for the things that I teach. And so for me, this was practice. This was breakthrough. And so I put something together. I put it in a text because we weren't together anymore. And I explained how I felt. And of course, it was in words that were all about me. This was my experience. It wasn't that she did anything wrong or bad. So this is where it's really important to be mindful of our own energy and know that words matter, right? And the energy behind the words matter. So, words, when we say, we use the word spelling as we write out words. So spelling is like spell casting, right? The things we say create spells, which is why we want to be very mindful about words that we use to describe things. So anyway, as I digress, I'll come back. So I explained to her my experience, and I explained to her what felt good in my body, and the moment that it didn't feel good in my body, and that I made a request that we have other kinds of conversations going forward instead of what came up about this thing. And I sent it with so much love, and I waited before I sent it. I put energy into it. I read it again. And this is now this wasn't a conscious conversation in person, but it could have been. But this happened to have been at a time where it was better to send a text. And so, and I sent it with the intention of love, and I read it again to make sure the energy was clean, and I felt clean inside. Let me digress for 1 second. Before I finished writing out that text, I went into my own body and did my work inside my own body. So I did some somatic work. I did an energy release. So I used Reiki on myself for clearing, but I also used some somatic anger release, right? To get out anything that felt frustrating, to complete out of my mouth using sound, breath, and movement, so that anything that was incomplete that I didn't say in that moment, where I was like blocking myself because, well, essentially I was self-abandoning in order to protect my friend. And so with somatic work, what we do is we use breath, movement, and sound to complete an event that was incomplete. And that's usually where our souls get fragmented. So I did it a number of times and I kept checking back in with my body. Where's the tension? Okay, it's in my jaw. Let's work with the jaw. Let's move it. Where else? Oh, then, maybe I felt it in my tummy or in my chest. And so I kept doing it until I checked in with my body and my body felt calm. And then I was able to bring in love, energy, frequency. So that's when I called in white light and love and compassion for us both, right? Of course, it was a little easier with this person because I know her intentions are clear. And I know that when we do this process with somebody that seemingly is attacking us or might be attacking us, it might be more challenging. But for this example, I was able to bring in compassion for me, compassion for her, knowing that, nobody was doing anything on purpose. And once I felt clean and clear in my body, that's when I was able to communicate. And the beautiful thing, which is why I wanted to share it tonight, is because I didn't get a response till much later. So of course, there's a whole other conversation about anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and then it's both, and I forgot what that one's called right now. But anyway, whatever it is. So I tend to fluctuate between both. So I just trusted that it was going to be received in the highest and best way, because my intentions were clear. My channel, my physical channel was clear, and I knew I was sending it with love. And the beautiful thing is that when I received the reply, I was deeply seen. I was deeply heard. And I was accepted with so much love. And it was an experience that I got to put in my cellular memory, and she did also, because the things that she said were so loving, and then she received what I had said with so much love. And so we both grew out of this, and this is how we create intimacy. And intimacy is not just for dating and partnership, but this is also for friendships and family. And so I was able to vulnerably share in a way and express something that didn't feel good to me, and she was able to receive it without defense, without pushback, with so much love, understanding, and just really open to receiving me, and also explaining her intentions so that I could receive her in a way that was very clear. And this is conscious communication, and this is something that, as we're healing sister wounds, mother wounds, in honor of Father's Day, we're hopefully healing father wounds. We get to have these conversations, and I coach my clients on this. But as I said, I practice what I teach. I embody what I teach. And of course, I'm not perfect. But this was such a shift that everything felt lighter. And I know that the next time I see her, our friendship will be just on a new level, because of it, because it was safe for both of us to express, and nobody made each other wrong. And so this is the type of conscious conversation that you can have, and you can strive to have with people that you love and that you care about, and even people that you're not that close with, as you continue to practice. This is about saying the thing, and that means saying the hard thing. And sometimes it can be very difficult. And if you're new to this type of communication, of course, practice on the people that you know are the safest. Whether if you have a coach or if you would like a coach, feel free to reach out to me to talk about what that looks like. But or if you have a trusted person in your life, practice on those people first, and then build that skill set, build that resilience. And the thing too, just like in manifesting, when we manifest, we call in our desires, we declare our desires, and then we let it go. We let it go. It's like this or something better. So when you're having a conscious communication, you get to say what it is that you are feeling with consciousness. So using I terms and expressing your own experience without making the other person wrong. And then it's up to the other person to receive or not. So there are times where you might be practicing conscious communication and the other person might not receive it so well. This happened to be a person that is conscious herself. So I knew that, well, you never know, but I almost 100% felt that it was going to be received in a very conscious way, that this was going to up-level both of us. But I have experienced having beginning a conscious conversation with somebody that wasn't able to receive it well at all, and with a lot of pushback in many different ways. And so, but the thing is, that gets to happen. Everybody gets to have their own experience, and everybody gets to respond from the place that they're at. And so that's a part of acceptance. I'm going to pause there for a moment, because there was a long time where acceptance was one of the most difficult things for me, because I wanted to fix things. I had knowledge. I have wisdom. I can show you. But the thing is, you can't take a person's path from them. That was one of my therapists from many years ago. Probably the wisest thing she ever said to me is, you can't take a person's path from them. And when she said that to me, it just opened up so much for me, because that's what letting go of control means. That's what acceptance means. So acceptance doesn't mean I accept you once you speak to me in the way that I want you to speak to me. Acceptance isn't, I accept you once you love me, once you understand me, once you see me. No, acceptance is allowing everything to be as it is in the here and now. And can you still find your peace inside? Can you still trust yourself no matter what is happening outside of you? Can you be the rock in the river? And that takes practice. And of course, as I've mentioned in other videos in this series, that certain people and scenarios will have a bigger activation for you, and others will have a smaller activation for you. So as you're practicing conscious communication, hopefully if you are married or in a long-term relationship, hopefully that relationship is safe where you can practice that with your lover. If you have a best friend, hopefully that is safe to practice it. And you can always talk about it after. If you are giving feedback, I'm just going to give a little asterisk. So I'm talking about conscious conversations. Sometimes conscious conversations will lead into giving somebody feedback. When I was in gratitude training, one of the biggest things that they instilled in us was that you must ask for permission to give feedback, right? So saying to somebody like, this is what I see in you without asking if it's okay is kind of abusive, right? Because you don't know where that person is in their nervous system. So you get to respect the people that you're talking with. Now, back to my example, I made everything that I said about me. So I was not giving her feedback about how I think she should act, right? That wasn't for me to say, and that wasn't even in my experience of her. I knew that this was just about me saying, this is a boundary of mine that I also, P.S., I also expressed to her that I felt it in my body at the moment and was unable to say it. So I let her know what my experience was, because in the past I've had people say to me, well, why didn't you tell me before? And that was before I understood what freeze is. And I used to make it that there was something wrong with me. So any of you out there that experiences freeze or fawn, and you think that there's something wrong with you, there's not. There's nothing wrong with you. It just means that your nervous system learned a certain way, and if you do the work and go back far enough, you'll see that that response was developed to keep you safe, to protect you. It's just a response that your body has that it learned. And the great news is that we can learn a new way once we bring consciousness to it. Typically, it's not the fastest. But this is why, like what I talked about yesterday, we'll tie in yesterday to today. Yesterday was about being in conscious community, or being in community and also building resilience so that you could be in any community and be centered in your heart. And as you're practicing what conscious communication is, find your safe people so that you can practice it and experience yourself using your voice. Hear yourself saying the thing that's on your heart, that perhaps in the past you would have said to yourself, it's no big deal, maybe I'm being too sensitive, I'm fine, it's good, I'm all good, no worries, right? You can say the thing now, it's safe, you can make it safe, you can find the people in your life that make it safe for you, and you can build this resilience in yourself so that you are safe in your container, this meat suit, so that if somebody doesn't receive you, you can act accordingly and make another pivot or whatever it is that you need to do. And that's okay that they are there. Can we make that okay too? Can we not judge somebody because they're not where you are? It's so easy to say in this live, right? But like, when I sat with those emotions before I made that communication, like I was not feeling okay. I needed to use my voice and scream and do all the things, right? This process is not beautiful. It's not pretty. Right now I'm at sunset and the sun's shining on me and I could talk about it. I remember to put on lip gloss. But like in real life, like this is not what it looks like. And it's the real work. And you come out of it, like I went to sleep that night with ease. And I felt good. And I felt a little afraid. I felt a little afraid that night when that happened because, I didn't know what the response was going to be. But that's also my work, right? That's anxious attachment. Like, am I going to be abandoned? But sending love to myself, to all those different parts of myself, I literally... that was another part of my process. I know, forgive me, I'm in telling you different parts at different times, but hopefully the transmission is coming through my energy field anyway. But what I did do is when I realized that there was a part of me that was feeling anxious, and the part of me that was feeling like I was going to be rejected, abandoned, I literally wrote in my journal and then talked to myself and did work on my body to send love to that part of myself that was feeling that way, because these are separate parts of us that kind of get fragmented out a long time ago through trauma. And it's up to us to start to bring these parts back and not make them wrong, and instead hug them and love them and tell them that they're safe and help them feel safe, right? We could tap, we can do breath work, We can put our feet on the ground, but most importantly, name the thing. Name it to yourself first. Tell yourself the truth. Even if it feels icky, it's okay, right? It's okay to have emotions and feelings, and they don't all have to be, because I'm spiritual, all I see is rainbows and sparkles and fairies. That's just not how it works. And yes, we see all those things. I see all of those things. And I get to really love up on the parts of me that feel dark or heavy. Because if I don't love up on those parts of me, who else is going to love those parts of me? Right? And how could I love somebody fully if I can't love those parts of myself? As I look back, I can see situations where somebody was acting really ugly. And if I'm really honest with myself, I think I judged them because I judged that part of myself that was hidden away. Like there's no way that there was a part of me that was like that. But as I went further in parts work and in somatic work, I realized, yeah, I'm that too. Anytime that anybody shows up in a certain way in your life, I'm that too. As I talked about yesterday, and I think the other day, is that the world is our mirror. So yeah, so there's definitely a lot of learning there, and forgiveness, and as we send that love to ourselves, to all those different parts, and then have these conscious conversations, imagine the expansion of love that we are creating. Because if I'm sending love to myself, to all those parts that start to come back together, and my chakras start to align, my breath starts to align, my jaw starts to relax, my tummy starts to relax, and then the person that you're talking to, they start to align, and then we talk to each other. And as we meditate in a group, but even as we share together, the energy expands and expands. And imagine what that does when more and more people get to have conscious conversations, have those difficult conversations, right? Good relationships are not just about, having, fun. Just, it is. We want to have fun. We want to experience life. We want to do all the things. And it's also about having those hard conversations, saying like, this is what's on my heart. And with a little guidance, with a little wisdom, we start to pick the people that can receive us in a beautiful way. And this is honestly one of the reasons that I start all of my classes and all of my circles with setting an intention, that I have each person, if they're willing to share it, to set their intention for the class, to use their voice. This is a way for everyone to get in touch with their heart, with their desires, and to love up on themselves. You can't love up on yourself if you are ignoring your own desires. And it doesn't matter how many people accept it. I have been in places where my knowledge maybe was either ahead of the time, or people just didn't get me, and I've had to learn to stand on my own. And that could be one of the scariest things. But what happens if you stand on your own long enough, in your truth, if you're standing in your truth long enough, the right people, the people that are vibing where you choose to be vibing, where you choose to vibe also, start to show up just like magic. They walk into my classes. They come back into my life. I meet them at conscious parties. It just happens. So far, it hasn't happened with a life partner yet, but I'm putting the intention out there. But everything in its highest and divine time. But the work is always here first. It's here first and then outward. And I, if any of you are feeling like wanting to give me the finger for saying that, I get it, because there have been so many times where it was so hard for me to shift inside, especially when I wasn't feeling the love from peers that I felt were conscious and actually were not acting conscious. And it might just be that our energies didn't align. But I've learned to see it from different perspectives and send them love too from afar. And of course, there's some maybe that I still get to have some work to do with, but I am human. And but what has been happening is the strength with my heart, the strength in my tummy, the strength with my head with aligning my chakras, aligning with my highest self, has gotten so much more strong. And so that I start to pivot my attention back to me instead of other people's responses to me, because their responses are secondary, right? Because what really matters is me and God, me and Source, me and my heart, me and my higher self. Because once I turn off this live and I'm not on client calls and I'm not teaching classes, it's just me and God and my presence, and what am I doing while the cameras are off? That's what counts. And any of the relationships, if they have gone away for a little while, I do believe that the right ones come back. And new ones come in that are even higher and more aligned. And lately, all the cards I've been picking have been talking about faith. And I love you too, honey. I've been talking about faith. And there have been days where I did not have faith. I lost my faith. I lost my faith. And as a teacher, I put a lot of pressure on myself to be aligned and be in love frequency. And when I was losing my faith, it just made me just want to just stop everything. But all you need is a mustard seed of faith, right? And maybe bumping into somebody nice on the street. That's why it's so important. Hold the door open for somebody. You never know, you might have saved their life that day. But just having that little bit of faith. And we don't have to see how things are going to pan out. We just have to have faith. And, but yeah, so back to conscious conversations. Have those conscious conversations with yourself. If you don't know how to do it, get support on how to do that. Because it's going to be the best investment you've ever made in your life. And I have a lot of experience, and life is going by, and lately I'm almost at the age that my mom passed. So soon I'm going to be older than her. And so, older than she ever would be. And so I'm really just looking at life and just going, wow. And as I said in the other video, talking about radical responsibility, sometimes just really stopping and looking back could really help you move forward. But if we do this with love and without judgment and without blame or shame, and just start these conscious conversations with yourself. Do it in your journal. I started with it in my journal. But then I do speak out loud to myself. Yes, I do. Because sometimes it's just so important to hear your own voice, to say it and hear yourself say it. Using breath, using 4-part breath or Kapalabhati, depending on what your body needs. If you want me to talk more about this in another video, I will. Feel free to add a little comment. But really, and then using your voice, maybe it's not only words, maybe it's guttural sounds. Maybe there's screaming, and sometimes if I'm yelling, I bring it down to my womb and yell from my womb. Or sometimes when I'm feeling really good and everything comes out, then I have a little practice with light language, and so the light language starts coming out on its own, and that's very interesting and very healing to feel and experience. So, and I'll just wrap this up because I feel like it's getting to be complete. But if you're concerned about having conscious conversations the way I have in the past, find somebody safe to practice on. If you don't have that right now, practice in your journal. You can even use your phone and record your own voice. You could always DM me. I do have a spot open in my one-on-one program, but even if you're not ready to be in a one-on-one program, you can always reach out to me privately for some tips. But having these conscious conversations, in my opinion, is how we actually eventually change the world. And I know that might sound grandiose, but think about it. The butterfly effect. Like if you hear me and then maybe you have a higher level conversation with your partner, and then your partner has a higher level conversation with their coworker, right? You see how it's spreading out without much effort. And then we're all the better for it. So just and I'll just wrap up with tips. Using I statements, I feel this was my experience. And if you find yourself saying, well, you made me feel when you said, then write it in a draft in your phone and keep getting to the core of what is here for you before you send it. Until you can express it in a way that is about you and it's not a you made me feel, then you're getting out of victim and you're getting back into your empowerment. Once you're in your empowerment, you can come back into love, and that's when you can share, and that's when the other person can, well, not everybody, but that's when you have a better chance of the other person being able to receive you in the way that you are trying to, the way you are intending to be received, right? With love. And if you're angry and rageful, F all of that and just get the rage out. Feel the rage. Feel the rage. When you feel the emotion all the way, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, that's all it needs. It's when we start attaching the story to it is what keeps these terrible feelings going and going. And I'm not saying this to preach. I'm saying this because I've been my own victim of ruminating thoughts. And that, again, is a trauma response because the brain is thinking about it like, how can I fix it? If I just think about it again in another way, maybe I can come up with the next solution. I can fix it, I can fix it, I can fix it. And so the work is to teach your body that it's safe. Everything is as it is, and that's okay. I could feed myself my own love. I could feed myself the needs that I desired from that outside person or situation, and you come back into your own strength, and you come back into loving the part of you, and coming back to love that little girl that's going, no, that little part of you that's victimy and whiny or whatever she is. Like, love her. That's what I did in this situation, right? I just let myself feel ugly, and then once I gave her all that attention, it was like, oh, okay. So it doesn't even have to take a long time, and it doesn't have to take years of therapy. So that was a situation about conscious conversation. I'm sharing with you my process as I live it. As I've been teaching it for a long time, what I'm understanding in this past year is that everything that I've taught has now come into my life as a new initiation for me to embody things on the next deeper level, which at first I was thinking there was something wrong with me. And I was not happy. And I was questioning my whole path, to be honest. And the things that have helped are seeing the results of the people that I have supported, but that wasn't even enough. Once I've been really loving much more deeply the parts of myself, I'm starting to get more comfortable in the unknown, and you can too. And I'm not saying this because all of my relationships have been repaired. They're not. But we practice one relationship at a time. And first here. So if I can step into a party knowing that I love myself and I love all the parts of myself, then whatever comes at me in that party, like, I'll be okay. And I can still be in love frequency, or I can bring myself back pretty quickly. And you can too. This is not magic. Well, it's a little magic, but it's really just a lot of focus and a softness, right? So those of us that have been in personal development for a long time are like, give me the 5 steps to blah, 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 and I'm going to do the things. And that's very masculine, and that we do need that in our lives, masculine parts of us that take the steps. But what I'm learning and what a lot of people are learning now is how to bring in the feminine where they're receiving. That means being on the unknown and receiving, just pausing, feeling. So, whew, this work is not for the faint of heart. This work does take attention. So if you're looking for a quick fix, like, I'm not your person. But if you're looking to step into love, if you're looking to step into growth that is long lasting and sustainable, then you're in the right place. And I'm going to keep sharing whatever I can in my personal experience with myself, with my clients, and share my story. So, all right, well, I'm sending you so much love, and thank you for receiving my medicine and allowing me to see that the stuff that I have been practicing and on my knees and all the things, that I'm finding a way to express it to you so that other people can benefit. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sending so much love and gratitude. Have a beautiful Sunday night, Father's Day.